Let's listen to y'all's chief, Dan Calloway. All right. Dan Calloway did a post on a website, a fake newspaper post type website about 2015. 98% of African Americans are native Indians or native Indians are owed millions. Listen to what he says about why he did this, right? Okay. The kid don't have no knowledge. Y'all may for the new youngsters, the young people coming up today, I know it's a whole different wave for y'all, but the knowledge is not there. The knowledge of self is really not there, right? What's there is to scam people into believing what he believes. Let's listen.
Documentary style videos. That's how you know what's going on. That's the truth. I was not playing around. And I'm indigenous to this land. I'm not from nowhere else. That's a fact. I put my life on the line for this, man. I was not playing. And I did not stop. I didn't care how much backlash I was getting. I did not care. I said, nah, I know this is the truth. Not only was it true with my family, I'm sure it was true for all. And I gave them a number. I said 90% and 98%. The terminology that I used back then in that 2015 article, I said 98% of Native Americans, no, I said 98% of African Americans are in fact Native Americans and are owed millions. But I did that on purpose to grab their attention. And that article went viral. Then I did the video. Y'all could go back on the channel over a minute.
So he said that he did that to grab people's attention. He knew it wasn't true, right? Like I've shown, it's not true. Many of you know that it's not true. He just clowned himself right there by saying, when I put that article out, I did it for shock value. I did it to get out there, right? And the video got a lot of views. Okay. You know what that means? Everything that he said after that point of making that has been made up, right? None of you so-called American Indians, misnomered as Black, Negro, African American, and colored, have shown no genealogy since this scammer, this gimmick, has stepped on the scene. Okay, he got a whole wave going, and he just said that he made it up. Let's check it out. So, did anybody ever go back and check out that article? I think I got it posted on or in one of my videos when I found out that Dan Calloway, he just fluffing y'all, right? He's trying to get views, man. You know, and he's got his views, but he's fluffing y'all. And so here's the article. It's done by Brooks Sinclair in 2019. He did his article in 2015 under a fake website that looked like a newspaper company, right? The Oklahoma Eagle. You can't find it, or at least I couldn't find it. And I found it by searching this title right here. This is when I knew Dan Calloway was just like, he gonna make it up as he goes, right? Okay. 98% of African Americans are in fact Native Indians and are owed millions. And she put it up, and so she believes it. Do you people understand what he did when he said this? I mean, he canceled out everything. to say there's no African ancestry in people, right? Africans never been over here. He's saying Africans didn't build anything in this country. It's all Indians. He just said Indian is a misnomer though. But the people, the Aboriginal indigenous people over here were called Indians because of how their skin looked. The fool went as far as to say that Indian, okay, the slang on the mispronunciation of Indian, which is really a misnomer, but you claimed it though, to engine is likened to engine, the motor in the car, and they was given that name engine by the colonizers because they moved fast. They was making moves. Does that make any sense? Let's overlook this information that we have here, okay, which is ridiculous. He gives you this picture. See, I got to remember the early Dan Calloway. He was hijacking pictures. You know what I'm saying? Not giving any acknowledgement for the pictures being used. Here it is right here by Dan Calloway at the Oklahoma Eagle. So this story was on another site called the Oklahoma Eagle that I couldn't find anymore. So look how he starts off. The tens of millions of black Americans, or rather Indians. He just said right now, okay, in this video, why they hid what they hid about black Americans and why foreigners or whatever. He's talking about Tariq Nasheed in the video and FBA and all of that little junk right there. But he said Indian is a misnomer. You know, Indians been smoking cannabis for a long time. And they've been putting hemp oil inside of their horses, injected in the muscle and stuff. The tens of millions of black Americans, or rather Indians, who disappeared after 1492 did not all die in the Holocaust inflicted within America. They disappeared. Tens of millions of black Americans who are Indians disappeared because of a Holocaust after 1492 within America. Hundreds of thousands then, after the tens of millions disappeared. Oh, they said that did not all die, but tens of millions have disappeared. Hundreds and thousands were shipped to Europe. Now, he says there's no slave ships that came here. We can't find no slave ships. So how were tens, hundreds, and thousands of Indians shipped to Europe and Africa? If there's no slave ships coming this way, how is there slave ships going towards Europe and Africa? Hundreds of thousands were shipped to Europe and Africa as Indian slaves. There's no date. There's no timeline. There's no when. It just says after 1492. The whole slave trade story was given to all of us in reverse. In reverse, aching to hundreds and thousands, okay, of Indians, black Americans were shipped to Europe and Africa as Indian slaves. Why would he put that if they Indians? You see that? The whole slave trade, okay, a mass colony of Africans was not shipped from Africa to America. A mass colony of Africans was not shipped from Africa to America. He does not even understand what colony means. Colony goes along with colonizer. So no, a mass colony of Africans was not shipped from Africa to America. Hundreds of thousands of Africans were shipped to the Americas under bondage. The truth is that black Indians were shipped from America to Europe. Okay. He's telling you right now to put the black down. Put the black down, right? But this has been 10 years from this point. Everybody grows. They see error in their ways and things of that nature. But this is so off the charts in the sense that it's not even real history that he had to bring it up today, 10 years later. Okay? 10 years later. It makes me want to go get my earlier videos that no one has seen on Dan Calloway and see how the guy is fraudulent. You, Dan Calloway, Indians don't have no knowledge. You don't have no true knowledge of history. You're listening to Dan Calloway and he misled you. They were then shipped from Spain. Look, the truth is that black Indians were shipped from America to Europe. Where is that history at? Shouldn't history match up with some history? Shouldn't his history match up with some history? When were black Indians? Hundreds of thousands. Then they were then shipped from Spain, okay? He got Europe and Africa. Now it's Spain and Africa as commodities for African resources. So what they go to Europe for? What did they go to Spain for? If only to get to Africa and be traded for African resources. These black Indians now mistaken as African Americans. How? Because they left as Indian slaves. How could they be mistaken as African Americans when you set up here hundreds of thousands were shipped to Europe and Africa as Indian slaves? Down here, you say these black Indians now mistaken as African Americans were shipped back to America and classified as African slaves. That makes no sense. How would they be mistaken for African Americans if they're Indian slaves? So what is the purpose of even bringing them back to America as African slaves if they're Indian slaves? And aren't you the one who's saying that the transatlantic slave trade didn't happen? So they wouldn't have been called African slaves. They would have remained to be called Indians. All right. Plus, this story don't make no sense because it's not backed up by any history. But he mentioned it. He just mentioned it right now, 2 hours ago. Okay. So obviously he's trying to clean up some of his slop. This part of our history is what the school systems fail to mention in history programs. Y'all go look at his video, man. Okay, it's like 32 minutes long. Go and see the bullshit that he trying to feed. He keep trying to feed y'all, man. Synthetic food. He keep trying to feed y'all synthetic food. Off of this bullshit. The reason why he was able to slip in and get in is because people wasn't contending with this type of information when he decided to go full-fledged Navajo Indian. I told you a lot was going on. So this is 2015, right? He a new wave. However, new trends start. It's Moorish information going on. It's Black Hebrew Israelite information going on. You know what I'm saying? It's Nuwapian information going on. It's Egyptology going on. There's all kind of information out there coming from those older than this guy, a generation or two older than this guy. And wherever he got his Black Indian information outside of the Nuwapian nation and the Washita nation, right? Even Noble Drew Ali say he has some Indian blood in him under the Moorish science information. So wherever he got his Indian information, he just stuck with it. And he recreated himself. I mean that's all. That's what it is. Because this don't make no sense. Every European nation that colonized North America utilized Indian slaves for construction. So what happened to the African slaves? Okay. And what was the purpose to take them over to Africa and Europe to only get African resources? They didn't get no Spanish breads, no coins, nothing in Spain. When they went to Europe, what happened? Look, he even come down and say all historians note that nowhere is there more authentic documentation than in South Carolina, also known as the original English colony of Carolina, established in 1670. It is estimated that between 1650 and 1730, at least 50,000 Indians, and likely wherever that goes. Okay, all historians notes. Who noted that? Okay, that's what type of edited information he's trying to give you. Okay, he's running game on you, right? And you can always marry that up with some visuals and some music behind it that's cinematic, right? Between 1670 and 1717, where did he get these numbers from? Far more Indians were exported than Africans were imported. Numbers. Brief Indian slavery complexity. Right? And there's more to that. But all that to say, he said he made all of this up. Okay. And in the original document, he's got more stolen pictures from real sisters who are actually living out their life through their Native American identity. I don't want to say use the term Indian, man, because this is why. I mean, they think they smart, right? They think they smart. Niji was never used, okay? If you was misnomered as Negroes, why y'all didn't fight back and say you was Indian, okay? The reason why you didn't fight back is what is Indian telling you? What tribe are you from back then? Y'all act like y'all in the 1800s or something like that. Y'all don't know nothing. Y'all keep saying whatever the southern tribes is, that's what y'all claiming. Y'all have no customs, no heritage. Okay? Indian is an inhabitant of India or South Asia. Okay? You can't be that ignorant, man. So when Dane Calloway said Indian is a misnomer, it is. But he said it was used to describe the skin complexion. And that is not, and then he said indigo. He said indigo, right? So let's look up indigo. Cause he deep, ain't he? He nigga's a bitch like indigo. To as a the description of the skin, right? 17th century Spanish, Portuguese, Greek, Incticon. You got to go back to the Greek. You got to go back to the Latin. Blue dye from India. Literally, Indian substance. Indigos, Indian from India. Okay, but I don't see no copper color or nothing like that, right? So I don't know the reason why someone would say their skin or they Indian and indigo go together, and that's the descriptions or the representations of a people that have sun heat genes, right? But he said, see, India, and we was at India, but we can jump back to it. This has nothing to do originally with the American Indians, okay? Prior to Christopher Columbus, there was no Indian in America. Y'all should know that. Before Christopher Columbus, there was no Indian in America, right? And so for you to say that you are a black Indian or anything Indian is crazy. And Dan Calloway is trying to duck up out of it right now. He's trying to duck up out of it right now because he knows it doesn't make any sense. Okay? Doesn't make any sense. Reflecting Spanish and Portuguese use on the mistaken notion that America was the eastern end of Asia. So when you talk about the Indies, that's coming from India. So there's no Indies prior to Christopher Columbus, the Spaniards coming in. You should know, you should be able to comprehend and be able to read English. Okay? You've been put under the spell, obviously. All right. And so, yeah. Go check out his video. Red Indian to distinguish the Native Americans from inhabitants of India. So now there's a comparison. Okay. And so Dan Calloway and those like Dan Calloway who claiming to be black Indians, you can't have nappy hair. You can't have sun hair. You can't have kingly hair. You got to have straight hair because Indians don't have Afro hair. Come on, man. Come on, man. Grand Kush out.